They rule the world with money and hate each other's guts. These are billionaire feuds you never knew about. If Silicon Valley had a boxing ring, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg would be mid-fight already. And no, that's not just a metaphor. Elon literally challenged Mark to a cage match not long ago. But that fight started way before the MMA gloves came out. These aren't just two rich guys in tech, they're polar opposites with clashing views on the future. And their dislike for each other is no secret. Elon is unpredictable, loud, and thrives on chaos. Mark is calculated, quiet, and obsessed with control. And that's exactly where things start to spark. The first blow came when Elon publicly mocked Facebook's handling of data after the Cambridge Analytica scandal. He didn't just criticize the company, he deleted Tesla and SpaceX's Facebook pages and encouraged others to do the same. It was a big move, and one that definitely caught Zuckerberg's attention. Things escalated when they began clashing over artificial intelligence. Elon warned the world about AI dangers. Mark called those warnings irresponsible. Elon fired back saying Mark's understanding of AI was limited. That's billionaire code for you don't get it. Then came the race for social media dominance. Elon bought Twitter, rebranded it to X, and let things run wild. Not long after, Mark launched Threads, a direct rival. That wasn't a coincidence, it was a statement. The gloves were officially off. And in the middle of all this, Elon allegedly said something that perfectly sums up the power imbalance he sees. That he could buy Zuckerberg if he wanted to. One sentence: no mercy. That's not just ego, it's warfare. Mark didn't fire back directly, but his actions spoke volumes. He posted footage of himself training MMA and focused on building the metaverse. While Elon joked, Mark plotted, this isn't just tech competition, it's personal. Both want to reshape how the world connects, and they're willing to burn bridges to do it. One wants chaos and free speech, the other wants a curated, controlled digital empire. It's like Mandarin and Iron Man trading barbs on social media, only it's real, and billions of people are caught in the middle. And just when you think it couldn't get any more dramatic, cue the rocket-fueled ego clash between Branson and Bezos. If Musk versus Zuckerberg feels like tech's version of high school drama, then Branson versus Bezos is full-blown space soap opera. These two billionaires weren't just racing to orbit, they were racing to outshine each other in front of the entire planet. It started quietly. Branson had long dreamed of commercial space travel, and his company, Virgin Galactic, had a head start. But when Bezos rolled out Blue Origin with a mountain of Amazon cash behind it, things got tense. At first, the rivalry looked like polite competition, but behind the smiles and handshakes, there was a fierce battle for pride, glory, and headlines. Branson launched his suborbital flight just days before Bezos' scheduled mission, practically elbowing his way to the stage. Bezos wasn't impressed. His team at Blue Origin fired back, saying Virgin's flight didn't even reach the official edge of space. That wasn't a press release, that was a public slap. From there, things got petty. Branson said space should be for everyone. Bezos reminded people that Blue Origin spacecraft were more technically advanced. They each claimed they were building the future, for humanity of course. But the subtext was clear: I'm doing it better than you. Branson plays the charming, rebellious adventurer. Bezos brings the cold, calculated mogul energy, and they both crave legacy. What looked like two rich guys chasing a childhood dream was really about ego. This wasn't NASA versus SpaceX, this was space as a vanity mirror. And as we zoom out from Earth's atmosphere, we crash land back into something even more dramatic: American politics, where another billionaire rivalry burns bright. Donald Trump and Michael Bloomberg didn't just run in the same circles, they came from the same city, the same industry, and even had some mutual allies. But that didn't stop them from turning into full-blown enemies. Both made their fortune in real estate. Trump through branding and skyscrapers, Bloomberg through data and media empires. In New York, they were kings with different kingdoms. At first it was quiet tension. Trump didn't like Bloomberg's calm, technocratic vibe. Bloomberg didn't respect Trump's brash style, they coexisted barely. But once politics entered the picture, all bets were off. Bloomberg, a longtime critic of Trump's policies and personality, poured hundreds of millions into campaigns designed to push him out of office. He didn't just fund opponents, he ran himself briefly just to get under Trump's skin. Trump responded in classic Trump fashion mockery. He called Bloomberg Mini Mike, said he was boring, weak, short, you name it. Bloomberg, not one to shy away, clapped back with ads designed to sting. The entire 2020 campaign felt like two billionaires yelling across a debate stage, even when one of them wasn't invited. This wasn't just about politics, it was personal. It was about control, power, and legacy. Trump wanted loyalty. Bloomberg wanted accountability. Neither was willing to back down. The election may be over, but the tension between them hasn't cooled. Two real estate tycoons, two massive wallets, zero interest in being second best. And while they fought for dominance in the political arena, two other tech legends were quietly building the digital world we live in, only to clash harder than ever. This feud wasn't built on insults or Twitter jabs, it was built on brilliance, pride, and decades of fierce competition. Bill Gates and Steve Jobs weren't just tech pioneers, they were two of the most influential minds of their time, locked in a quiet, cold war for the soul of computing. Their relationship was complex. They started as allies. Apple relied on Microsoft software in its early days. But when Microsoft launched Windows, Jobs felt betrayed. He accused Gates of stealing the graphical interface from Apple. Gates didn't deny the similarities but hit back with a line that became legendary. "I think it's more like we both had this rich neighbor named Xerox, and I broke into his house to steal the TV and found out you had already stolen it." That's how these guys operated, not screaming matches, just sharp words and sharper moves. Jobs always saw Apple as an artist's company, a rebel force. Gates built Microsoft as a business machine, practical and everywhere. Their rivalry came down to vision control and elegance versus utility and scale. Behind the scenes there was respect, but never peace. Gates often praised Jobs' sense of design. Jobs once admitted Gates was smarter when it came to building an empire, but neither would say it directly when the cameras were rolling. Their companies clashed at every level, from software to hardware to marketing. Apple's famous Mac versus PC ads weren't just jokes, they were carefully crafted digs at Gates's legacy. And Gates? He poured resources into crushing Apple's market share even when the company was down. It wasn't until Steve's final years that things softened. They spoke more often, reflected on the industry they shaped. But even then, the tension lingered. This wasn't friendship, it was rivalry built on mutual obsession. And that obsession changed the world. If money could fly, these two would already be living on Mars. Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk aren't just the richest men alive, they're locked in a billion-dollar space race that's as much about ego as exploration. Bezos launched Blue Origin quietly, focused on slow, steady progress. Musk founded SpaceX loudly with flashy rockets and wild promises. From the start, the energy was different. Musk moved fast, tweeted constantly, took risks. Bezos stayed quiet, methodical, until SpaceX started stealing the spotlight. The rivalry boiled over when both companies started competing for government contracts. Musk called out Blue Origin for lawsuits and delays. Bezos's team responded by accusing SpaceX of cutting corners. They weren't just racing to space, they were trying to crush each other on the way up. Musk made things personal. He mocked Bezos on X, calling him a copycat, said Blue Origin's rockets looked like certain emojis. Every win for SpaceX came with a jab. Bezos, more reserved, let his company do the talking, with lawsuits, patent battles, and quiet boardroom plays. Then came the drama over who reached space first. Branson technically beat them both, but Musk didn't care. He said Bezos' suborbital trip wasn't real space anyway. It was one billionaire dunking on another, at 60 miles above sea level. Their visions of the future clash too. Musk wants to colonize Mars. Bezos talks about space hotels and orbiting cities. Musk calls his plans survival for humanity. Bezos frames his as luxury and progress. It's two different sci-fi novels playing out in real life. They're not friendly, they're not even pretending to be. This is a power struggle where rockets are just the opening act. And when billionaires start launching into the sky to prove who's better, well, Earth gets very small in the rear view. Jack Ma was once the face of China's entrepreneurial dream. The founder of Alibaba, a former English teacher turned tech icon, Ma built an empire. He spoke freely, smiled often, and enjoyed global fame. But in a country where power means everything, that confidence became dangerous. His clash with Xi Jinping wasn't loud, it didn't explode on social media. It started quietly, with one speech. In 2020, Ma criticized China's financial regulators, calling them outdated and too cautious. It wasn't aggressive, but it was public, and it crossed a line. Almost overnight, Ma vanished from the spotlight. The IPO of Ant Group, his massive fintech company, was pulled at the last minute. Investigations followed, billion-dollar fines, restructuring orders. A subtle but unmistakable message: don't challenge the system. Xi never addressed Ma directly, but the crackdown spoke for him. China's leadership made it clear that no individual, no matter how rich or popular, was bigger than the state. Ma reappeared months later, looking quieter, thinner, and far less present in public. No more speeches, no more bold predictions, just silence. This wasn't a typical billionaire feud, it wasn't a rivalry, it was one man colliding with a wall of authority. Ma tried to push, the state pushed back, harder. And while Jack Ma stepped back, a signal was sent to every other rich entrepreneur in China: your money doesn't make you untouchable. Not all billionaire feuds are about products or profits. Some are about worldviews, and in this case, Elon Musk and George Soros might as well live on different planets. Soros, one of the most politically active billionaires on Earth, has spent decades funding democratic movements, justice reform, and liberal causes. Musk, especially in recent years, has shifted toward more unfiltered commentary and free speech absolutism. These two were bound to clash, but no one expected it to get this direct. Things got heated when Musk, in a post on X, compared Soros to a comic book villain, saying he hates humanity and had a dark agenda. It wasn't just a disagreement, it was personal, and millions saw it. Soros didn't respond himself, but his allies did. Civil rights organizations, journalists, and political figures fired back, accusing Musk of fueling dangerous conspiracy theories. It became a full-on media storm, headlines everywhere, hashtags trending. Musk didn't back down. If anything, he doubled down, criticizing Soros-backed policies in big cities and accusing him of destabilizing societies. But here's the twist. These two have never met in person, never done business together. This is pure ideology. Musk sees Soros as a manipulator hiding behind philanthropy. Soros sees Musk as reckless, too powerful, and increasingly hostile to democratic values. And yet both control major forces. Musk owns the platform, Soros funds global movements, their weapons are influence and visibility, and the battlefield, everyone's feed. Their feud feels less like a business clash and more like a political standoff in slow motion. No meetings, no calls, just cold public shots fired from opposite ends of the world. If Bill Gates was Steve Jobs' first rival, Larry Page was the final one. By the time Android came to life, Apple and Google had already partnered up. Google Search was the default on iPhones. Maps, Gmail, it was all baked in. But Jobs saw what was coming, and he didn't like it. When Google launched Android, Jobs felt betrayed. He thought they stole Apple's ideas, copying the iPhone's design and turning it into an open-source free-for-all. He wasn't vague about how he felt. In one now infamous moment, he reportedly told colleagues he would go thermonuclear on Google. Larry Page stayed mostly quiet. That's his style. Less drama, more algorithms. But Google kept expanding. Android exploded in popularity. And behind the scenes, Apple and Google began to drift apart. The competition got personal. Jobs hated the clutter and openness of Android. Page believed in access, in giving users control, even if it came at the cost of design purity. It was about philosophy as much as it was about smartphones. Eventually, Apple ditched Google Maps, replaced it with their own app. Google responded with a better version available on the App Store, just to show they could. The companies stopped pretending to be friends. Their CEOs stayed civil in public but cold in private. Page never fired back with angry quotes or dramatic speeches. He didn't need to. Android's growth spoke for itself, and that may have stung Jobs even more. This feud wasn't loud. It was a slow, methodical battle for the future of mobile, and the scars still shape the tech world today. From Silicon Valley, we now shift to the art capitals of Europe, where a centuries-old rivalry unfolds in luxury and legacy. This one doesn't involve rockets, AI, or politics, but make no mistake, it's a heavyweight fight. Bernard Arnault and François Pinault are France's two richest men, titans of fashion, luxury, and high art. And they've been locked in a quiet but fierce rivalry for decades. Arnault controls LVMH, the world's biggest luxury empire. Think Louis Vuitton, Dior, Moet, and Chandon. Pinault owns the Kering Group, Gucci, Balenciaga, Yves Saint Laurent. That's not just business, that's battle for taste, prestige, and influence in the fashion world. But their real clash isn't on runways, it's in museums. Both billionaires are obsessed with contemporary art, both own private collections worth billions, and both spent years trying to outdo each other in the most elite corners of the art world. Arnault opened the Fondation Louis Vuitton in Paris, a massive, futuristic museum designed by Frank Gehry. It's a showpiece of wealth and creativity. Pinot responded by converting historic buildings in Venice and Paris into high-end art spaces filled with rare and provocative pieces. The message from both sides? My collection defines culture more than yours. They rarely speak about each other. But in interviews the tension is there. Arnault calls his work a gift to the public. Pinot stresses independence from corporate influence. Their feud is polite but sharp, like champagne served with a smirk. It's a cultural arms race. And in the world of luxury, legacy is everything. Back in the US, another rivalry brews, not over art but over how to control entire corporations. Buffett versus Icahn. This is old-school capitalism at its sharpest. Warren Buffett and Carl Icahn are two of the most successful investors in history. But they couldn't be more different, and they've never liked each other's style. Buffett is the Oracle of Omaha, patient, strategic. He buys businesses and holds on to them for decades. Icahn is a corporate raider, aggressive. He buys stakes, shakes things up and forces change, fast. Their rivalry started in the 80s, during Wall Street's wild years. Buffett called out Icahn's tactics as destructive. Icahn mocked Buffett's cautious approach as too soft. Over the years, they've taken opposing sides in major deals, like Herbalife, Apple, and Dell, making billions while quietly poking at each other through the press. Icahn once said Buffett wouldn't know what to do in a hostile takeover. Buffett, in return, called activist investors like Icahn dangerous to long-term value. It's not personal in the loud, dramatic way, it's strategic. And that makes it even more intense. These men are playing chess, not checkers, with billions on the line. They don't shout, they don't tweet. But when they move, the market watches. And each is keenly aware of what the other is doing. This one feels like a corporate version of a mentor turning into a nemesis. Larry Ellison, the co-founder of Oracle, once took Mark Benioff under his wing. Benioff worked at Oracle for over a decade and called Ellison a mentor, but that didn't last. The student broke away and built a company that would come to challenge his teacher. Benioff founded Salesforce in the late 90s with a radical idea-move enterprise software to the cloud. At the time, Ellison didn't take it seriously. Oracle was built on traditional software systems, big, expensive, and installed locally. Benioff wanted to make business tools accessible anywhere, on any device. It was bold, and it worked. At first, Ellison dismissed it, then he copied it. Oracle launched its own cloud products years later, but by then, Salesforce had already become the king of cloud-based customer software, and Ellison wasn't happy. That's when the gloves came off. Ellison took shots at Salesforce's business model. He called it weak, not real innovation. Benioff fired back in interviews, saying Oracle was stuck in the past and trying to buy relevance with acquisitions. There were lawsuits, public digs at each other during tech conferences, and even a spat over a speaking slot at Oracle Open World. Benioff was booted from the schedule. He said Ellison couldn't handle hearing criticism. The tension still simmers. Oracle and Salesforce continue to battle over contracts, clients, and influence. Ellison sees Benioff as the guy who took his playbook and rewrote it. Benioff sees Ellison as the past trying to stay relevant. It's a full-blown Silicon Valley drama. Code, cash, and quiet contempt. And next, we step into the global arena, where media empires and political ideals collide in a war of influence between two of the most controversial names in modern history. When Rupert Murdoch and George Soros clash, it's not about business. It's about the battle for public opinion. One controls massive media empires, the other funds political movements. And their feud is less about direct words and more about decades of ideological war. Murdoch built Fox News and News Corp, platforms that speak to conservative audiences across the globe. Soros, through his Open Society Foundations, has backed pro-democracy, liberal, and anti-authoritarian efforts in more than 100 countries. To say they're on opposite sides is an understatement. They don't go on record slamming each other directly. They don't need to. The outlets Murdoch owns frequently portray Soros as a powerful manipulator behind global unrest. Meanwhile, the organizations Soros supports push back against Murdoch's media influence, accusing it of polarizing public discourse. It's not personal, it's strategic. Soros focuses on shaping policy and civil society. Murdoch influences elections, public perception, and political movements. They both spend big, they both move nations. What makes this rivalry so intense is the scale. We're talking global reach, not just boardroom tension, and though they may never stand on the same debate stage or appear in the same room, their ideological shadowboxing affects millions. The battle isn't over, and neither man is backing down. In India, Mukesh Ambani and Gautam Adani are more than tycoons. They're titans carving up the nation's future. For years, Ambani ruled unchallenged, with Reliance dominating oil, telecom, and retail. But Adani came in fast, aggressive, and ready to build an empire of his own. Ports, power, airports, green energy. At first, their paths barely crossed. But as both expanded into the same sectors, especially renewables and infrastructure, the rivalry exploded. Behind the scenes, government contracts, regulations, and market influence became battlegrounds. While Ambani focuses on tech and consumer markets, Adani pushes into logistics and energy, yet both are after dominance. Media whispers say they avoid public clashes but watch each other closely, competing for partnerships and national influence. It's a cold war of capital, where silence says more than speeches, and every billion invested is a move on the board. Before tech empires and hedge funds, the richest man in history ruled West Africa, Mansa Musa of the Mali Empire. But hidden behind his golden legacy was a quieter power struggle with the man who came before him, Abu Bakr II. One vanished into myth, the other rewrote history in gold. Abu Bakr II was the explorer king. Fascinated by what lay beyond the Atlantic, he sent hundreds of ships west, chasing the unknown. He never returned. Some believe he reached distant lands, maybe even the Americas, long before Columbus. But with Abu Bakr gone, his deputy, Musa, took the throne, and made sure no one looked back. Mansa Musa built mosques, libraries, and entire cities. He made a pilgrimage to Mecca with so much gold that he caused inflation in Egypt for years. According to modern estimates, his wealth adjusted for today would total around $22.5 trillion. That's not just rich, that's wealth beyond comprehension. But Musa wasn't just building an empire, he was burying a legacy. He called Abu Bakr's journey reckless. And while Musa's name was carved into stone in scripture, Abu Bakr's faded. This wasn't a loud feud, it was one man erasing the other through legacy, influence, and the sheer weight of unthinkable wealth. And in the end, Musa won. Not just the crown, but the memory of an empire. That's about it. Whose feud surprised you the most? Write in the comments. For more useful information, watch other videos.